Hi gang, welcome back to the Unraised Latina Ever. Today's topic is going to be on gun laws and safety. I lived out in Oregon, and it was the gun capital of the world, even though it was extremely liberal. And we had the belief of raising our kids to learn how to use guns. And my son had to take a gun safety course. What I have to say is that you really have to kind of be on top of things all the times with kids, because when he was in middle school, a lot of his friends had BB guns and such, and I took notice to some dead critters laying around the yard, and was blamed on the cat, and I happened to suspect that they were using their BB guns to take out innocent animals, and so I flipped out and went crazy on my son and his little friend. And I said, first it's, you're killing the little innocent animals and you're not going to eat them. And, this is like you're killing them for the sake of just killing them. And you're going to turn into a serial killer. And, of course, the kid that was with my son thought my going off was funny. But I limited the time that they spent together because I felt it was really important for my son to understand that who he hung around with and the things that they do really reflects how you're going to grow up. And I just didn't think it was okay. And I also took his BB gun away. So you as a parent have to raise responsible children. And with that said, back in the day, it was just normal for every little boy to have a BB gun, but if somebody gets shot in the leg with that little pellet or whatever, you yank that gun, because kids aren't responsible sometimes. As much as we want to instill that responsibility, they just have, short attention spans, whatever happens, but, sometimes they do stupid stuff. With that said, about this situation, it was failure on every level, state, federal, everything. And the cops that were waiting in the parking lot, and then some of we're going to be really stringent and we're going to make sure that we block this and do that because of this one situation. And what really, if mental health was doing their jobs here in the state of Florida, this kid would have never gotten a hold of a gun and he would have never done what he did. So with that said, I think that Health and Human Services needs to be beefed up. I really think that, when somebody has mental health issues and they're going in and they're being treated on psychiatric drugs and that kind of thing, that no way do you give them a freaking, what kind of a gun was it, Bill? It was a
AR-15.
AR-15. Like, what the hell is some 18-year-old going to do with an AR-15? And then he's posting about it. Like, he's not secretive. He's not hiding the fact that he absolutely, he puts it out there, and so we had a lot of warning, and a lot of people knew about this shady little individual, and so many lives were ruined that day. And at my son's school, because he went to a Pinellas County school district after being in part of a rural area, and we only had 200 kids, and I could walk along that whole school and never be stopped, but I'd always check into the office, let them know that I'm there, and why I'm there. And so that's what you do in a small rural area. You respect the rules. But anyway, here in Pinellas, you weren't even allowed into the school. They blocked everything off. They locked the doors. And so you had to go through the office. You had to have a very valid reason on why you were there. And if your son forgot his lunch or whatever, you gave the lunch to somebody and then they were sure to pass it on to the kid or whatever. But I felt very secure there. And they had, I think, 2,000 kids. And so I didn't feel secure with the busing system, Mr. Rick Scott. There was a lot of bullying that went on. And I drove up to that school daily to give him and other kids rides home so they would get home safely, because there was some major bullying from the Drew Street area kids who were on this route, and they were just obnoxious kids. So anyway, that's a real problem area in Pinellas County. It's a certain demographic of kids in that area, Mr. Scott, and those certain kids, like to pile on one particular person, harass little girls, and be just complete shits. And by the way, I know I shouldn't mention, the demographics of these individuals, but they happen to be African American, Mr. Scott. So anyway, to make sure that the kids were safe, I and some other parents, chauffeured our kids, that were in high school, that were, juniors and seniors, home from school safely, so they wouldn't have to take the bus. So as parents, we go the distance for our kids so they can be safe. With that said, there needs to be cameras on every school bus, because a lot can happen in transporting the kids too as well. But I don't feel like we've done everything we could for school safety. And really where we have to start with is the bullying and harassment of kids. Because you know what? They say, oh, well, kids need to start toughening up, and they need sticks and stones will break my bones. But you know what? I really feel like, bullying leads up to certain kinds of things. And so I really feel like there should be some no tolerance for people that are bullies and people that are mean-spirited. So with that, we need to address school bullying. Kids with special needs, like that kid that had depression, there should have been mental health after the death of his mother. And there should have been some intervention on behalf of that child. It was, yeah, he had problems. He was on drugs. Yes, he was seeing a state person to get help, but I don't think they had done enough for this particular individual. Another responsibility, as we talk about guns being really bad, we give our kids video games. Have you guys seen some of the video games that these kids play? I mean, killing. I even didn't like Donkey. I banned Donkey Kong. I just thought it was just these gorillas hitting and slugging and stomping on everything. This is very violent, and kids are playing these little Donkey Kong games like from the time they're toddlers. So they're being taught to hit, punch, strike. And we're wondering why our children are more aggressive. Well, look at the stuff that we're subjecting them to. I mean, like, look at Family Guy. I mean, we think that's a cartoon for kids. Well, at least I did. We had no TV, so I had no idea when we got TV again that the kids in public school were watching this. And so one day I'm like, oh, that's a cute little cartoon. It looks like all these adults. And then I sat down and listened to it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is totally inappropriate. But seriously, a lot of parents, allow their kids to be exposed to all these different kinds of things, and then they wonder why the kids are acting or behaving in a certain way. So I really think that it takes I shouldn't even say village, because you know what, in some ways I did agree with Hillary in that regard. When we were raising our kids in a small rural area, we had like a good news club. It was actually Christian people that came into the schools, and after the schools met with these kids, or they were bused to a church. But before, we got all uppity about God being in the schools, I mean, these people would come into the schools, and they would be after school, the program would meet, and then we would come and pick up our kids. And I absolutely think that saved a whole bunch of our kids. And it taught them about Jesus, and it gave them that biblical structure. We can't teach about Jesus, but we can teach about sex, and we can teach about condoms, and we can teach about abortion and killing. And we wonder where and why our kids are so screwed up. And you've got to look at some of the things that are going on. I remember when my kids were in high school, they had gotten a $25 certificate, and I said, where did you get this money? And they go, well, I want to go spend it, because we got it because we went down to the health department and got to pee in a cup. And I said, well, why did you do that? And they go, for birth control. I said, are you sexually active? They said no. But we wanted to get the free certificate. And I said, well, these people were so gun-ho in getting our kids condoms and sexually active that they would bribe them with a certificate for $25. And if you want to really personally ask me, these kids would be able to get abortions in the state of Oregon and some other states without parental consent. I don't know how many states allow that, but I think it is absolutely horrible. And I think that some of the things that they were teaching the kids in sex ed was so inappropriate and so wrong in every single way that you wonder where all this is coming from. It's coming from our school systems. Because if we taught morality instead of immorality, we would have less problems. We really would. And another thing, I said, you can guard all the exits, you can have police enforcement all you want, but you know what? These killers, you know, it's not even the gun issue. It is not even the gun. If they don't have a gun, there was another school incident where the guy used a knife and stabbed a bunch of people. So it's not just guns. And this people are like, oh, let's just take an attack at the NRA and ban all blah blah blah. You know, yes, I understand that the AR whatever shouldn't be in the hands of some 18-year-old, you know, bipolar kid. But at the same time, you know, you have to kind of weigh everything out. And with that said, I feel like Florida has some pretty stringent laws as far as mental health. They Baker Act somebody if they even seem to or appear to be a threat to themselves. And yet we couldn't have Baker Acted a kid who was making threats on social media that he was going to take out a bunch of school kids. Now, come on, Rick Scott, tell me that you didn't see that one coming. And shame on the FBI for not doing their jobs. And shame on those police officers for standing in the parking lot for 4 minutes twiddling their thumbs. And all of them should be fired. That's all. I think Mr. Trump is doing an excellent job. He's really addressing it, and I hope that we can take advantage of the fact that there are lots of retired cops and enforcement officers that maybe can go in and part-time it, you know, as the school is leaving or people are entering into the schools, secure those schools and do things to keep our schools safer. With that said, you guys have a blessed day and God bless.